weekly plunge into fish keeping. Welcome to the Aquarium Hour.
Hey everyone, I'm so excited to dive into today's topic about matchmaking in community tanks. After 15 years of running what I like to call my aquatic reality shows, I've seen enough drama, romance, and unexpected friendships to fill a whole season of The Bachelor. And speaking of perfect matches, let me introduce my friend Ravi, who's basically the David Attenborough of home aquariums.
Thanks for that introduction, Maria. Though I think you're giving me too much credit, I just believe in creating the most natural environments possible for our aquatic friends. Down to selecting the exact species of leaf litter that would be present in their native habitat during specific seasons. Actually, I probably do get a bit carried away sometimes.
That's exactly why we need your expertise. Let's start with what I call the power couples of the freshwater world. Those fish combinations that just work perfectly together? Like my absolute favorite, the peaceful marriage between Corydoras and Cardinal Tetras. They're like the aquarium equivalent of that perfect couple that never fights because they literally operate on different levels.
Oh yes, that's actually a perfect example of niche partitioning, which we see in natural habitats. The Corydoras stick to the bottom, while the cardinals claim the middle water column. But what I find fascinating is how this reflects their natural behavior in South American waterways. In the wild, these species often inhabit the same areas, but rarely compete for resources. It's like they've evolved to be perfect roommates.
Speaking of roommate drama, let's talk about some combinations that look good on paper but turn into total disasters. I once had a client who insisted on putting angelfish with fancy guppies because they looked pretty together. I tried to warn them, but, let's just say those guppies' flowing tails were too tempting for the angels to resist.
That's a classic mistake. It's like putting a lion and a gazelle in the same enclosure and expecting them to be friends. You know what's interesting though? In their natural habitat, angelfish actually coexist with smaller fish. But the environment is so densely planted that the smaller fish have plenty of hiding places. The problem in home aquariums is that we often don't or can't replicate that level of complexity.
That's such a good point. It's not always about the fish being inherently incompatible, but about creating the right environment. Like, I've successfully kept what some consider impossible combinations by really focusing on the habitat. Tell me about some of your favorite unexpected success stories, Ravi.
Well, one of my proudest achievements was creating what I call my Southeast Asian stream setup. I managed to keep celestial pearl danios with peaceful bettas. The key was having incredibly dense plantings of cryptocoryne and Java fern, along with carefully placed Indian almond leaves, which, by the way, I source from specific regions to match their natural habitat exactly.
Oh my gosh, you really are thorough. But it works, doesn't it? I've noticed that some of the best community tanks are the ones that recreate natural systems. Let's talk about some perfect beginner-friendly combinations. I always recommend the classic neon tetra, harlequin rasbora, and coolie loach trio. Different water levels, different feeding habits, and all peaceful.
That's a great recommendation, though I'd add that water parameters are crucial here. These species all prefer slightly acidic, soft water, which makes maintenance simpler for beginners. Temperature compatibility is also key. They all thrive between 75 and 78 degrees Fahrenheit. What's interesting is that this combination actually mirrors natural Southeast Asian and South American biotopes, even though these species wouldn't naturally meet.
Let's talk about some of the more challenging combinations that can work with expert care. I've always been fascinated by the possibilities of keeping dwarf cichlids in community tanks. They have such personality. But boy, do you need to know what you're doing.
Absolutely. Apistogramma species are my specialty. The key is understanding their territorial needs during breeding. I've successfully kept Apistogramma cacatuoides with pencilfish and marble hatchetfish. The trick is creating distinct territories using let me be specific here. Carefully positioned Anubias thickets and Aponogeton bulbs, with leaf litter zones that match their natural Amazonian habitat.
I love how you can make this work. But let's also talk about some absolute no-goes. I don't care how much experience you have, putting tiger barbs with long-finned fish is just asking for trouble. Or trying to keep gold barbs with slow-moving bottom feeders. They'll steal every bit of food before it reaches the bottom.
Yes, those are definite no-goes. And let's not forget about the common mistake of mixing different betta species or assuming all plecos stay small. Speaking of size, that's another crucial factor in compatibility. People often forget that their cute little baby fish will grow. I once had to rescue a common pleco from a 20-gallon tank where it had outgrown literally everything.
Oh, the growth factor. That reminds me of what I call the teenage phase, when juvenile fish start showing their adult behaviors. I've seen so many peaceful community tanks turn into war zones because nobody anticipated how the fish would behave as adults. Like those adorable baby jewel cichlids that turn into territorial monsters.
That's why research is so crucial. You know what I find fascinating? The way different species mature at different rates. Take Bolivian rams, for instance. They develop their territorial behavior much more gradually than their German blue ram cousins, making them generally better community citizens. It's all about understanding these life cycles and how they'll impact tank dynamics over time.
Let's wrap this up with some golden rules for successful community tank matchmaking. My top 3 are: 1. Always research adult sizes. 2. Consider water column occupation. And 3. Match temperaments and swimming styles. What would you add, Ravi?
Excellent rules. I'd add, consider the natural habitat requirements, especially water parameters and temperature ranges, ensure proper territory size for each species, and perhaps most importantly, always have a backup plan if combinations don't work out. After all, even with perfect planning, fish sometimes just don't read the manual on how they're supposed to behave. It's like my professor used to say, we're not just keeping fish, we're maintaining entire ecosystems in miniature. Every decision we make affects the whole community.
Thanks for swimming with us on the Aquarium Hour. Until next time.